I have a lot of complicated feelings and a lot of things I want to say and a lot of things I don't want to say. Comics and the participation in its culture should be fun and fulfilling and enriching, develop us as artists and thinkers and people. And as makers, one of the great challenges is the balancing of isolation and becoming a social creature and an entrepreneur, if that's what you wish. I don't really care about the entrepreneurial part, and I have a lot of friends who do and do it really well. I find it exhausting. I am tracking my progress to the point where I don't need to be concerned about any of that stuff and still have material come out. That really is a big part of my goal. I can't be bothered to go to conventions and deal with people like that. I do love people and I love working with people. And one of the things that I want to talk about on this program, which I'm going to call Reading the Pictures, um, is how you can continue to develop your path in comics culture without concerning yourself with breaking into the industry or fitting in on Twitter or whatever the hell, you know. There are ways to do it. There are ways to apply the skills of visual storytelling across different media and education and social services. And that's one of the things that I hope to talk about. That's something that I did. I had a career making comics completely removed from the comics industry. And after the events of the last month, I couldn't be happier about it. So so long and thanks for all the fish. This is the gift of the Piskor. This is Ed's gift to all of us, but filtered through myself, so it's Ed's gift to me. I never knew Ed. I knew him superficially. We had positive, superficial social media interactions, which I appreciated very much. I didn't get the sense that Ed wanted to be buddy buddy with any of the people watching his show, and he certainly didn't behave in that way. Um, the first time I saw Ed, he was, it was probably in the Puck building, but the first time I saw him, like, as a more than just someone who was tabling, was he was being interviewed, I think, for Hip Hop Family Tree, and in a very shoot interview, kayfabe, putting on the Ritz way, he was jokingly bragging about his Gucci hat, and I said, this guy is fascinating. The funny thing about me and Ed's comics are that so many of the concerns that I have with making comics were aligned with things that Ed was also seemingly concerned with. Aesthetically, we were partially aligned. I think that the closest piece of DNA that we had was like John Byrne, Bill Watterson, Charles Schultz. But there were places where Ed zagged where I would have zigged, and there were pockets of comics knowledge that he was so intimate with that none of us knew. Okay, us. What is the gift of the Piskor? The gift of the Piskor was something that I had been searching for since I moved to New York City and started working in and around comics as a cartoonist and freelancer and exhibitor and intern and retailer and journalist and educator. And I'd go to these shows at Mocha or SPX, and I would say, wow, I can see what it looks like when comics people become great friends. How do I do that? And I spent many years with that as the quandary. It wasn't because I didn't know how to make friends, but comics is, socially a very unique beast. Suddenly, so anyway, I'd been a fan of Jim Rugg's since the Puck building. It's 2009, I would say. And I consider Jim Rugg to be one of the, there's a lot of cartoonists. Jim Rugg might be one of the greatest living cartoonists. And I've thought that way for quite some time. And my list includes people like Kyle Baker, Tilly Walden, Jaime Hernandez, Alex Robinson, etc. Auteurs, Klaus type guys. Anyway, so when they announced that they were going to do this show, I was really excited because I knew that Ed's work was mostly partially aligned to my creative concerns. And I had seen him talk about comics, and he had insights, and I thought that they were incredibly valuable. And so I was excited. I was one of the first 300 subscribers to both the YouTube channel and the Ringside Seats Facebook group. No big deal. The gift of the Piskor was that group of friends that I saw people participating in greater comics culture when I would go to conventions, how the pros would sort of, have their own sort of pseudo celebrity class, and, people who were in different fandoms got along and all this stuff. And suddenly, through Ringside Seats, I had dozens of friends and eyeballs and commenters and the social sort of avenue that me and I think a lot of people, I know this for a fact, happen to have. There was a point in my sort of like budding quotes, like indie comics shtick, where I knew that I had to get myself into more anthologies. And I started doing that before these anthologies started happening. But these large books, The Gift of the Piskor, to so many people, what this was publishing opportunities that sprang out of a fan community that allowed for industry legends to get published next to up-and-coming cartoonists, next to industry pros, next to people who are getting published for the very first time. And that's a very powerful thing, and you won't see it anywhere else. What was happening on YouTube when Cartoonist Kayfabe launched? Well, there were two flavors of comics culture commentary. There were people like Comics Historian who would get ramped up about the way Batman ties his shoes, and it would never stop. And it's not about the nuance of the medium. It's about like the plot and characterization. I've read 700 issues of Batman. Batman doesn't talk like that. This is what Batman sounds like. Very specific kind of like literary commentary for a very specific type of comic. Me and my friends were more like omnivores, and Ed and Jim brought that out in a lot of people, and a lot of people would say I had only read superhero stuff for 30 years, and now I'm reading indie stuff. There was one guy who became a cultural commentator that I can think of who had his flip switched very, very publicly. I loved it. Excuse me. So there was like the amped up, let me tell you what happens in the plot and the lore and the continuity of superhero comics, which is, I don't yuck the yum. If you enjoy that, God bless. And then there was the culture war stuff, which is, I'm not going to say anything about it. Don't want to say anything about it. Don't want my name in their mouths. To say that you're not responsible for Ed's death because he didn't name you to skip away innocently is absurd. Ed didn't name certain people who were the loudest because he didn't respect them. He didn't respect the way they related to the culture. He didn't respect the work they were doing. And he sure as fuck didn't respect anybody who wasn't picking up a pencil and even trying to draw. That's all I'm going to say. This is The Gift of the Piskor. These are the several books that me and my friends put together. This is the first one. This is Wizard. I colored this cover. Beautiful, magnificent colors by David Browers. And this was the first time I think I had anything published that had even attempt to use the Ben-Day effect. I was surprised that I got the color hold going on this. There's also a 3D version of this, and the amazingly, all the texture held up and it really popped out in 3D. So this is Wizard #1, and you can find enormous flip throughs of all these books. Here's Eli. Anyway, the point was there were two types of comics commentary cultures. There's Jerome's and Pixel Art. The first was Comics Historian, and the second is the Culture War, which I've made my comment on and been steamed at for the last 60 seconds. So Cartoonist Kayfabe was completely different because it was focused on the craft and storytelling. This channel, this is not a channel, this series of videos is going to be called, symbolically at least, Reading the Pictures. I famously don't read my comics, and to me, the mark of a good comic is one that you can discern the meaning and pace of the story from the art alone. So that's the way that I'm going to read, and I will cynically spur engagement by misreading the pictures occasionally and saying at the end, if you've read this book, tell me what it's about. I can't read yet. I'm up to the letter J. So anyway, I wanted to start that series of videos by talking about The Gift of the Piskor. My takeaway from Ed's unbelievably tragic death is that we need to hold on to our friends, we need to be kinder, and we need to focus on craft and storytelling and not on drama. I can't believe it needs to be said. I can't believe it needs to be said that adults shouldn't like insult and harass each other over wanting to or making comic books. It's so silly. Comic books are wonderful. Let me show you some great examples. This is Wizard, the comics magazine. This is a big book. All these books have spines, by the way. This one is 450 pages almost. And it was a send up and a love letter to cartoonist Kayfabe and to the friendships that we found. It was shepherded by Eli Schwab, and it was modeled and designed by him after the old Wizard magazine. So here's the letter art, which, wow, man, this one's by Tony Farrow. All people that I know here, every single page is stuff that was sort of immortalized. Here's Chris Meese, immortalized on cartoonist Kayfabe over the last 5 years. Here's Han Allred. I think this is Luis's work. Like every single page is just like a different friend of mine. It might be Jim's. There's Diana. I think I have a page. Here's my spread. Here's my unfortunate. Oh my God! Don't tell Barry Windsor Smith, the greatest comic book artist of all time, that I spent a few panels making fun of him. In good measure. I know he wouldn't like it. This is a book that will one day come out. It said it was coming out in 2020. It hasn't yet. There's 85 pages. Chris Meese came in and helped me out with some inks in the last several pages. I can't wait for you to see it. It's apparently going to come like packaged in like a blister pack with a joint on the cover. We shall see. Here's Diana Schutz, maybe the greatest editor in the history of comics. Certainly the one with the most breadth of incredible talent that she worked under, that reflected the history of the medium. Palmer's picks, straight back from Wizard magazine. We were so happy to do this. We felt like the community came together, and we felt like we were really doing something special and cool for free, and we did it fast. We put it together. We promoted our books. The great Daniel Moeller. I will do a video on the Shaman King himself. Unbelievable work. I can't flip through all these, like this Tim Truman's Grateful Dead stuff. I used to I have a story about that. All kinds of, I could go on and on and on, but it keeps going. And then there was, look at this, public domain Basil Wolverton comics, Kirby stuff from the public domain. This is Alexi Zurich and Dave Cooper. Yeah, so like real legit indie juice. Look at this, Bernie Moreau. Oh my God. You don't know Bernie Moreau? Don't worry, I am here. That's why my channel exists, to tell you about Bernie Moreau. Jim Mahfood, wonderful. Thank you, Jim, for participating in all these Cosmic Alliance stuff. Luis, Senor. Giving all these people shine. Jake Quinones. And then we don't know who this is. Joshua Ryan Green. Fantastic. Rory Hayes Brutalism. Love it. Is this an adult? Is this a child? Fantastic. So this is the vibe at Cosmic Line, right? Where you can be an industry legend, or you can blah blah blah. You can get published for the first time. This is Image Grand Design. The Grand Design books are really interesting. I find them. Oh, my glare is terrible.